Baseball is a very special game. It's really a game about life. I don't know what I would do without it. It has comforted me. It has given me some of the greatest feelings: love, compassion, joy, beauty, defeat, sadness, despair. Wait until next year. We all know what that feels like. The incredible highs and lows, but everything in between. For me, it's the range of human emotions. It also has the power to bring us together. In a world right now of uncertainty, in a place where we feel somewhat divided, or there's lots of definition of division in our world today, baseball has power to unify us and bring us together. And it allows us to reach some of the highest heights, reach for the stars. It helps us to dig deep when we really need to dig deep. But for me, and I know for a lot of other folks, it helps us to remember that we can always go home again. And that's one of the things I love about baseball. And that's why I'm glad you're all here tonight to hear these fantastic storytellers. We have a full lineup. There's 9 storytellers. And batting first, Cindy Hendrickson.
I'm talking a little bit about a family situation that involves baseball. So when I was a child, I grew up in an era where girls were girls. You know, I lived for the Beatles. I was one of the ones who pretend to faint whenever you know, you saw a Beatle in a movie like Help or A Hard Day's Night. And I actually collected their cards. You know, they have Beatles cards like they have baseball cards. Well, speaking of baseball cards, I grew up with a sister who played baseball from the time she could walk. She wore a baseball hat, which was really, really annoying for me for very many years, and like for all of her life. So up until now, and she probably still does, I'm sure, but anyway, we had to share a bedroom, which obviously was a little annoying, and I thought, I am not having Red Sox wallpaper here, I want pink. Well, she was too busy playing baseball to really, really care about what color the bedroom was, how it was decorated. So I had 4 brothers that they all played Little League, or she was a Batgirl. Now, I just thought a Batgirl was some kind of superhero, so I wasn't too worried about it. I didn't think she'd be like stealing from my Barbie collection or anything like that. But there were times where I wished that I had learned how to play baseball. For instance, we used to go into vacation in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, at this campy kind of place, and I really liked the guy who, the owner's son. So he organized a softball game, which is great. So he put me on first base. How flattered was I? I was 13 years old, and I'm on first base. Well, the first batter gets up, hits the ball, and it goes pop up, and guess who misses the ball on first base? Da-da! So all of a sudden, me, who was so flattered moments before, you stink! Why are you there? Get off, get off, get off, get off! So I left, and I walked down to the lake, lonely, and feeling very depressed. So that's when I wish I didn't throw like a girl. Somebody had taught me how to throw. So as the years went on, my sister continued to play softball, baseball. She coached. She married her husband, I swear, because his birthday was the same day as Carl Yastrzemski's. So, of course, I barely would have known who Carl Yastrzemski was, except I think the only album that she owned was something called The Impossible Dream, about 1967. And I do pay attention, big Fairweather fan here, to anything big like that. And so I would have to listen day in and day out to Carl Yastrzemski, Carl Yastrzemski, Carl Yastrzemski, the man we call Yes. Oh, dear God. So, and then, but leave it to me, I end up dating, of all people, a sportscaster. Well, was she thrilled? The two of them would talk about this and that, and I would just go to Fenway Park and be so happy that I could eat something besides Fenway Franks. I got to hang out with the wives. You know, I knew Wade and Debbie Boggs when they had written that How to Eat Chicken 365 Days a Year calendar. That was before it was with the penthouse hooker or whoever it was. I think she got a little fed up with them after that. And I also realized that to be hanging out with these wives, that I made a mental note, you know, if you want to be married to a professional baseball player, you have to be blonde and you do not want to have a Boston accent. Texas, you know, anything like that, Southern, you don't want to have, you really have to work on your accent and your hair. So in 2014, my sister received this prestigious award for all of the work she's done in baseball. It was called the Avis Murray Award. And Avis Murray was an ace tennis player. And it was it was at the Gloucester House restaurant. There were about 300 people there. Wonderful night. So Avis came up to shake hands with the family. And when she got to me, she shook my hand and she said, "Oh, you're the one who's not the athlete." Well, the first thing I thought of was I wanted to go for a jugular. The second thing I thought of was, you know, not for nothing, but, you know, I ran 12 marathons, 6 Boston marathons. I, you know, skied double black diamonds. I run up mountains. I did triathlons. Like, why isn't that an athlete, right, you would think? But I guess it's just being active, you know, as opposed to being athletic. Active and athletic are two totally different things. So am I finishing up with baseball? Last thing. So recently I went through this manila envelope of newspaper clippings that my father had collected and saved for each of us. Mine, for some reason, they felt obligated to put this picture of me that took up most of the front page of the sports page in the Gloucester Daily Times. So here I am smiling, looking down at home plate, and the newspaper said, you know, Cindy Hendrickson smiles as she frowns as she strikes out. Well, I have a big smile on my face. As she strikes out with bases loaded. Like, bases, I knew I struck out, but the bases were loaded that time. Anyway, my next life, I think I'll try and not throw a ball like a girl, but I am glad that I am a fair weather fan, that I made it through my whitewater rafting trip on the toughest river ever in the world, and to be able to be alive for the 2004 World Series. So, all right, thanks.
Thank you so much, Cindy. I think you qualify as an athlete, definitely. Our next storyteller is used to be from Gloucester, was a Gloucester fisherman here for a long time. His family lived in Gloucester. His 2 children went to Gloucester Public Schools. He's come all the way from Portland, Maine to tell us a fantastic story. Peter Galitis, come on up.
In 1968, I was 10 years old, and I ran out into Fenway Park to get an autograph. And the reason I did this was because at the beginning, or before the game, one of my friends caught a ball that the player threw up in the stand during warm-ups. And about 3 innings into the game, he said, "I really wish I could get this ball autographed." And I said, "I'll get it autographed for you." I don't know what possessed me to say this, but I make decisions like that to this day. I look at my ex-wife who says, "That's for sure." So I take the ball, I go down to the edge of the field, and I find an empty seat, and I wait. And when the innings change and the Red Sox come out on the field, I run out to the nearest player, and it's right field, and there's Tony Canigliaro, affectionately known as Tony C. to many. I look up at Tony, and I say, "Can you please autograph this ball?" And he says, "No." He said, "I can't." I was disappointed and shocked, and I asked him again, I said, "Can you please autograph this ball for me?" And he said, "I'm sorry, I can't do that." He said, "I'm not supposed to do that." I'm 10 years old. I asked one more time, I said, "Can you please autograph this ball for me?" And he looks at me, and then he looks off to the side, which makes me look off to the side, and there's these 2 big cops coming right towards us, and they don't look too happy. They're not running, but they're making a good clip. He takes the ball from me. He begins to sign it. And as he's signing it, he says, what you want to do is you want to run towards the infield, and when they follow you that direction, turn around and come back this way and jump over the wall. I said, thanks, and I turned around, and I started heading for the pitcher's mound. And I made it about to the first and second baseline, and I wasn't looking at the cops. I was just imagining they're right behind me, ready to grab me at any second. I get to the first and second baseline, and then I do an about face, and I see that they're not right behind me, and I have a kind of a clear shot up to right field. So I book it as fast as my 10-year-old legs would take me, and I'm running towards the right field wall, thinking they're still right behind me. And as I get closer, I focus my attention to one guy sitting there in the front row with the cap and glasses, and he's my target. And as I get close to the wall, I jump and leap with the ball in one hand, the pen in the other, and I land in his lap. And then my first thought is, I made it. But no sooner did I have that thought than I feel my body being yanked up into the air violently, and this booming voice that says, come here, you little bastard. And I was caught. He pulled me so hard, the cop pulled me so hard, that he ripped my pants from the zipper all the way up to the back. And it was denim jeans. He marched me through the stadium, brought me down to the office. They have a little police office in the park, and they proceeded to scare the daylights out of me. Kid, you're in big trouble. And then the captain said to one of the lieutenants, hey, Sean, you got the paddy wagon coming? Yeah, Cap, the paddy wagon's on its way, be here in a minute. I knew what that meant. I was going to jail, and I didn't know when I was going to see my parents again, or my family. They asked me a few more questions. Where's your mother? She's at home. Where's your father? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I don't know where he is. When was the last time you saw your father? About 2 years ago. My parents are divorced. Well, right there, the mood in the room changed. The tough talk stopped. They felt really bad for me, and I could tell as a 10-year-old kid. One of the cops came up and said, here, kid, have an ice cream, and he gave it to me. You know, those little hood ice creams that used to come in a box, vanilla, strawberry, chocolate, and the wooden spoon. But I was so sick to my stomach, I couldn't eat it. So I put it in the thing. What seemed like an eternity, the guy who brought us there was a Chevy dealer. He brought 3 busloads of kid. He retrieved me, thankfully. I said, I'm not telling my mother any of this because, you know, she'll ground me for the rest of the summer. We take the bus ride home. My mom says, how'd you like the game, Peter? It was okay, Mom, thank you, and went to bed. The next morning, she comes into my room and said, Peter, did you run out into Fenway Park yesterday? And I'm thinking, how does she know this? Because Mr. Johansson said he saw your picture in the paper. But she must have not heard about the cop situation because she didn't ground me, and there was a little smirk on her face, thinking that somehow it was cool that I got my picture in the paper, you know? So I get on the bicycle, I ride down to the grocery store, I pick up the paper, and on the front page of the sports section, on the Boston Herald Traveler, as it was known, there's a picture of me standing next to Tony C., as I'm in my takeoff position and run for your life. So I was a little happy to see that, and then there's 2 lessons here that I learned from this experience, which is don't be afraid to take a risk because you'll always have a good story to tell. And second is always tell your mother everything because she's gonna find out anyway. So thank you for listening.
Well, Peter, did you get the ball back?
No.
I'm going to tell just a short, quick story. This is my son Corey's hat. Corey was 9 years old when he got this hat. And when the Red Sox, in 2004, when the Red Sox got into the playoffs, I had a feeling. So I rounded up the kids after school, and I put them in the car, and I said, we're going to Fenway Park, and we're going to buy some hats, because this is it. This is the year. We got to Fenway Park. We walked into, you know, the souvenir place. I walked them up to the hat station there, and they all picked out a hat, and Corey picked out this one, and afterwards I took them outside, and I was like, we're going to do something. Ready? We're going to kiss the bricks at Fenway Park for good luck, because I know this is it. And I still remember us all standing there kissing the bricks at Fenway Park with the hat on, and this is Corey's hat that he's kept for so long. He's all worn and tattered, and inside it says curse, C-U-R-C-E, with it crossed out. And he's got 1918 crossed out. Anyway, he wore this all throughout the time. So I thought I'd give you a little. So batting cleanup tonight is Jimmy T. Jimmy, get up here. Power hitter. Come on.
So I have a story from my youth as well, play ball, if I can read it. When I was 12, a long time ago, it was actually the summer of '73, I think Jimmy Croce's Bad Bad Leroy Brown just made #1. But it was a hot summer day, so hot you could hear the heat bugs screeching in the deep grass of Gloucester's oldest cemetery. I was in the nearby oval playground in left field playing ball, wishing I was swimming or catching horseshoe crabs down Dunn Beach down the Annisquam River. I can't read this. Can I, Henry, can you put that light, whatever light back on? A light? Sorry, folks. Here comes the king of... Oh, I got my glasses. Yeah, no, that'll work. Oh, never mind, Henry. Oh, my God, it's so big now. Thank you very much. I can't finish better. Okay, reset. When I was 12, a long time ago, so I was in the field, left field, playing baseball, wishing I was swimming. Because I sucked at baseball. My friend Mike Apt, he could backhand a ground ball, gun it to first base so fast that it would snap the dust out of the first baseman's glove. But if I ever got the opportunity to play infield, ground balls always took a funny hop and hit me in the mouth. And by the time I picked up the ball, of course, I would gun it either over the first baseman's head or 6 feet in the dust ahead of him. So they put me in left field because there was less chance anyone would hit the ball to me there. And I spent most of the afternoon watching bumblebees on dandelions, hoping nobody hit the ball to me, and wishing I was swimming down the river. Whenever I was walking down Emerson Ave on my way to go swimming on the Annisquam with my beach towel and my lemon and lime twin light soda wrapped in tin foil, always somebody would inevitably ruin my day by saying, "Hey, Jimmy, go get your glove, we're playing baseball." I knew they didn't want me. I sucked. They knew I sucked. They just needed bodies to make a team. And you can't play baseball with just a few people. You need bodies. So the few good players would recruit a bunch of us stiffs with the promise of us being on the winning team. And of course, you had to play if you wanted to be one of the cool kids. You don't want to let the guys down, do you? So you got to play ball. When an umpire yells, "Play ball," it's an aggressive command. He's letting you know he's in charge and you're expected to play by the rules. He'll be watching. He'll throw you out of the game if you step too far out of line. The dictionary today defines the term play ball is to agree to work with or help someone in the way the person has suggested. That's in the dictionary. To agree to work with or help someone in the way the person has suggested. Listen, everybody knows there's a few major players here in Gloucester now, and of course they'd like us all to play ball. And you can't blame good local folks for getting caught up in the excitement. You can play, it would seem, for the new winning team. You'll have wealth, sip the wine, pretty women. When the call, play ball, echoes through City Hall, most will. Me, I'm going swimming.
Our next storyteller is an author. This is his new book, 101 All-Time Fantasy Baseball Teams. It's Jack Sweeney. It's quite an accomplishment, and through the Gloucester Writers Center, and for any writer out there knows how difficult sometimes it is to publish a book. But when it happens, and here it is. Congratulations, Jack. Come on up and tell us a great story.
Thank you. And thank the Writers Center for hosting this, and all of you for coming. So it's 1986, and I was at the Atlanta airport trying to catch a plane back to Boston, and then I hear on the loudspeaker that the flight is delayed for many hours. So I said, ugh. So I start walking around trying to pass the time, and who do I see sitting right there but Ted Williams, right? So to his left was his son, John Henry. To his left was some gentleman who I forgot. But more importantly, to Ted's right was an empty chair. So I said, why not? I'll take a chance. So I went over there and I said, you were great, but Willie was the best. He's going to say, get lost, kid, or not. So he smiled, he laughed. He said, boy, Willie, he was a good one. He was a good one. He could catch. I said, may I? He said, absolutely, sit down. So now I'm sitting down next to him. And I was there. He asked me what I was doing there. I was there on business. At the time, I was running IBM's Artificial Intelligence Center. And he asked about that. And when I told him, he was genuinely interested in artificial intelligence. And he knew something about it, which really surprised me. So we talked about artificial intelligence for a while, but then we got to talk about really important stuff like baseball. So I actually had mentioned to him that I was thinking of writing this book. I wanted to pick his brain a little bit and to talk about baseball. So he just turned around. It was just really the two of us for quite a while. So I asked him questions like, who are the toughest pitchers you faced? And he said, when I had to face Early Wynn and Hal Newhouser, Whitey Ford, Bobby Shantz, I think about these guys all day. But when I had to face Bob Feller, I think about him for 3 days. I just think about him. I said, okay, that's interesting. I said, what about the guys today? These guys coming up today, the hitters, who do you like? And he said, well, I like this new guy, Boggs, Wade Boggs. And I like the other guy in the other league, Tony Gwynn. They're going to be pretty good. They're going to the Hall of Fame. Well, guess what? He's right. They're both in the Hall of Fame. So he knew how to pick them. And we talked about, I had heard a story about he had a fight with Ty Cobb. Not a fight, but they were at odds. And I asked him if that was true. And he said, well, what's true is that they were putting together their all-time team, and Ted Williams put Rogers Hornsby at second base. For whatever reason, Cobb hated Rogers Hornsby and supposedly threw an ashtray at him. Ted says, no, he never threw anything at me, but we never spoke after that. That was Ty Cobb. So I told him my own Ty Cobb quote, thinking maybe he hadn't heard it. And the quote goes like this. The gentleman who said the quote said, well, I was playing golf, I was on the third green, and I heard, get out of the way, I'm coming through. So I got out of the way for the great Ty Cobb. The guy that said it was Dwight D. Eisenhower. So even Ted said, yeah, that he would intimidate you. So anyway, I said, who do you like from when you were playing? So he mentioned Joe DiMaggio as the greatest player, and I argued with him. I said, no, Willie was. And then we got into a little bit of an argument. I said, this is Ted Williams. I better quit while I'm ahead. I said, all right. We talked about Stan Musial. And he said he was in awe of Stan Musial, which surprised me. He said when he introduced his son to Stan, he was actually nervous about it. Anyway, then he said, to me it was a strange thing, he said, but I really like Willie McCovey. as a hitter. I said, really? Willie McCovey? So remember, I'm sitting there next to him, and I started thinking, then I kind of just got into, I lost myself. So I stood up. I didn't have a bat in my hand, but I stood up and I said, well, Willie McCovey is a slugger. He's a home run hitter. And he hits the long ball, and he strikes out a lot. So I said, if you're going to be a hitter, you got to focus, and you have to pick your pitches. You can't be striking out, and you got to hit the line drives and, put them in the gap. And that's what you do if you're a hitter. You don't go for the home run. And then I looked at Ted Williams, and he was smiling, and even John Henry and the other gentleman were kind of looking at me with this funny look. And then I realized I had committed the ultimate act of hubris. Joe Schmo was telling the greatest hitter that ever lived how to hit. He said, yeah, sit down. So I did. Thank you.
Our next storyteller is a big part of Rockport High School and has been for a long time, and also Rockport baseball. Please welcome George Ramsden. It's a real pleasure.
Yes. Thank you. I brought this hat, belonged to my late father. He wore this hat somewhere around 1998, 99. He'd wear it watching every game on TV. I didn't get to Fenway Park too much, although he had played there with a band for many years, off and on. So I want to wear it tonight in honor of Dad and let you know that when they won in 2004, Dad was well into his late 80s, and he said to me, well, Georgie, now I can die. And he remembered the 1918 series. He's only 3 years old. His grandmother was a big-time baseball fan, and he remembered sitting with her at times talking baseball. And at one point, he had a newspaper write-up on the 1918 series they won. And I also brought this bat, and Jack showed how to use it. I would never know how to use it. But I brought it in case there are any young people here, because if you never saw a wooden bat in person, boys and girls, this is what they look like, okay? And I don't know what they cost now, but I understand they're pretty expensive. This is known as a 32. Weaklings like myself use these, I guess. Okay. I better hold my notes for security. Been around baseball a long time. I played as a kid in Sandlot only, and I ended up eventually coaching high school ball, coaching middle school ball. I even coached a team that when I was in college, and I was like a manager, I guess. But we would go around to the prisons and play. That was interesting because we'd go in and have to strip completely in one room. Then we'd have to go to another room after they went through our bags and put our uniforms on. And that was always a treat to have to strip down and say, here I am. Okay. The best baseball that I enjoyed most in terms of coaching was Little League. And the younger they were, the better. Because as they get older, they didn't listen to you. The little ones really listened. I'd like to turn the clock back to 1960. It was April. It was a sunny, cool day. A great day for the opening game of the junior varsity baseball season at the high school that I was attending. And I was very fortunate because on that particular day, there were only 8 JV players. And JV players at that school, you had to be a sophomore. And maybe somebody that just barely didn't make the varsity as a junior. But there were no freshmen on that team. So for some reason, they pulled me up to be the 9th player. And I knew about it 2 days ahead of time it was going to happen. And I have to tell you, I had butterflies the night before. You see, I had gone to a local parochial grammar school, and there were no baseball teams in the parochial schools like that. And the kids that had gone to the public schools had all played baseball in junior high. I never had a uniform in my life. to play, we always just wore T-shirts. And I never had an umpire behind the plate. Some dad was out there in the middle of the field calling balls and strikes. So it was a big day in my life, to say the least. The day of the game, I have to tell you, anxiety and excitement were runaway in my system. Those emotions, I don't think I paid attention the entire day in school. And as it got closer to game time, and I should say the end of the day, school day, I was really just reeling, wondering, oh no, what am I doing? So the bell rang, we get out. We went down to a locker room area in the school. We dressed there, and it was not the varsity. There was nothing pretty about it. They threw uniforms and said, try them on, boys, here we go. Got to the field, the usual warm-up stuff, just throwing softball back and forth, and all of a sudden a sophomore spoke to me. At this high school, sophomores never spoke to freshmen, but now all of a sudden I was pretty good, I guess, and human, because I was playing on their level, at least for that day, and I felt pretty good about that. Eventually it was time to warm up the infield and outfield. I was putting on my uniform for the first time, playing in a game for the first time, and I was playing right field. So what? Right field was pretty good when you're a freshman on a JV team. And I was batting ninth, so I never batted fifth in my life, okay? And here I was, got into the game. I ran through a sign at third base and scored a run. I threw a runner out from right field to third base. And on top of it all, we won the game. Well, my season was over just about then, because I went back down to the freshman team. The one thing that happened that day, I got a double. I played 4 years of high school baseball. Every other hit I had was a single. I never got another extra base hit my entire life, but I got one as a freshman on the JV team, and I felt pretty darn good about that. And in terms of baseball, I heard you say earlier, it's something where we can be, the next day is the next day, and the Red Sox found out recently, 21-2, the next day they won a game. Baseball is a great game. It's been, as I say, part of my life, and I'm very, very happy that I guess, as exciting as it is today for the kids. I do worry, however, about lacrosse. Lacrosse is taking a lot of baseball players now, younger and younger. It's an exciting game for them. They move, they go, and baseball teams be boring for them. But I try to tell my grandson, who, by the way, was a teammate of Miles Wren, baseball is also a thinking game. You just don't get out there and run wild. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I have to say it's a real pleasure to have you here and for you to tell a story. Thank you, George. I'm just going to tell another quick vignette here. About my dad. My father and I did not have the best relationship. He was a very difficult man, but we had baseball. And we would sit on Saturday afternoons in the living room in silence together watching baseball. It was a big part of my life. It was something that we had together. And one day, we were sitting there, and he didn't really talk that much. And one day he said to me, Maureen, I tried out for the Red Sox. I was like, whoa. Dad, you tried out for the Red Sox? Yeah, I tried out for the Red Sox. I was like, you're kidding. What was it all about? He said, well, in the war, lots of baseball players went off to war, and there weren't that many. And the Red Sox put out a call for any kid in Boston to try out for the Red Sox. So I went. I was a left-handed pitcher. And they needed left-handed pitchers. There weren't a lot out there. So he said he stood in line almost all day at Fenway Park. They brought him in. He got up on the mound. He did his thing. And he said it was just in slow motion. He remembered it. And they said, thanks, kid. We'll be in touch. But that was one of the best moments in his life, and I have to say, one of my proudest moments of my dad. We always had baseball. Our next storyteller is our new storyteller in residence. Please welcome Jim Dowd.
My baseball story begins, as so many do, with me apologizing for the 1998 Matthew Broderick Godzilla film in a karaoke bar in Tokyo. We've all been there. What's going on is that I'm in Tokyo on a business trip, and I've flown in, and I was interviewing engineers for this telephony, this nerd guys who use this particular chip, and the company that had sent me on this hadn't told the distributor, the person who actually buys the chips, that I was going to be interviewing his customers. And so this is the Japanese insult equivalent of basically asking somebody's wife out while they're standing right there. Hey, you want to get a drink later? Like, it's really bad. This is a really bad thing. I get this call in Shanghai like, dude, you're flying into a shit sandwich. I'm like, so this is a terrible thing, and I don't know what to do. And like, it's like, okay, so Japan is a culture of humility and nuance. I'm dead, because those are not my strong suits. So I call my friend who's immigrated there, Adam Clark, and I say, Adam, what am I going to do here? And he says, apologize. I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to apologize. He said, no. Americans say, like, I'm sorry, I burned your house down, and we'll never speak of it again. In Japan, you apologize, you start apologizing, and you just keep apologizing for everything. So I go to the meetings, and I apologize, and I do the bowing, and I apologize, and we're playing, and we got to karaoke, and we're still apologizing for everything, and at some point, Godzilla comes up, and this distributor guy, who's way mad, is like, Godzilla is not a big animal. He's not a giant lizard. He is a myth. He is a spirit of Japan. I'm like, I am really sorry about this whole movie. And I just want to say, I grew up watching Godzilla movies, Channel 56, everyone, right? I love Godzilla, Gojira. Godzilla and the Swamp Monster was my favorite. Godzilla versus Megalon, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, Monster Island. I just go through the list. And I do whatever I can to make a statement that I'm, so okay. So I don't know how I'm doing, but I figure once you're apologizing for Godzilla, you may have lost the thing. So the next day I do some interviews, and he takes the whole team to a baseball game. The Cebu Lions. Okay, this is good, because it's baseball. Okay, I can do baseball, right? Baseball, right? No problem. Okay, Cebu Lions. And we get there, and baseball, the problem with baseball in Japan is it's like Microsoft Word, right? There's Microsoft Word, but there's the PC version and there's the Mac version, okay? And I'm on one and they're on the other one. So I'm sitting there in the stands, the Red Sox hat on, right? And there's a group of people to my left cheering, Lions, Lions. So I'm cheering, Lions, Lions. Why is everyone looking at me? Because they're the official cheerers in the cheering section, and I'm not in the official cheering section. And people in the official cheering section cheer. People in the official, not official, do not cheer. All right. And so there's this woman with like this backpack on that just is a beer keg, and she's like covered, this harness covered with salty snacks. This is, by the way, the greatest baseball invention ever. Is this woman, she just walks around with beer, and so I'm like, this person, this is good. So I'm like, okay. And it turns out the Red Sox hat is not that great a thing either, because in Japan, if you're either for the Lions, or in this game, or you're for the Bison, who are the other team, and you're dressed for them. So wearing the other team, that's my hat. What are you wearing that for? And to make it worse, this is 2007, when Theo Epstein and the crew were buying Daisuke. Remember this? They bought Daisuke, right? The whole thing for $50 million. And they only needed to pay $20 million, but they paid $50 because Cebu was in some financial difficulty, so they kind of bailed him out. So that's cool, but I'm wearing the hat. So this is like hey, look, I'm the people who bailed you out. This is a not good moment because I'm actually displaying sort of my dominance, which is not a good thing. This is bad. Okay, so this is not going well, right? This is not really super winning here. So I'm going to be for Cebu. I'm Cebu's guy, and this is it. And so I'm watching the game, and it's like a classic baseball moment, right? Classic baseball. It's tied. Bottom of the ninth. Cebu's batting, okay? 2 outs, 3 balls, okay? All we need is a walk, and Cebu's going to win. It's a tie game. And pitch comes, and it hits the mound. So it hits the plate. I'm like, yes, he walked him. Yes. And they call it a strike. And I go into like Boston sports fan, like, no, you've been robbed. This is bull. What are you kidding me? Oh my God, I'm ready to burn the place down. And like, And like everyone's all happy and there's fireworks going off and there's things that people are singing the Lion song and they're giving each other these dolls. And I'm like, why are they happy? I don't understand why they're happy. I don't understand. And when I get back to this party bus that we rented, or they rented for us, I'm just sitting there and I'm staring out the window, Tokyo, going, I've ruined this. I've ruined this. And I get it. It's Japan. It's a non-confrontational culture. Tie is better. Tying is better than winning there. There is shame in losing, but there's also shame in winning. They wanted the tie. The tie was the outcome. I'm like, I don't understand these people. I don't understand. And so the bus stops, and we're not at the hotel, and I'm still, oh, God. And I walk out, and we stopped in this little square in the middle of Tokyo, and there's this giant statue of Godzilla in this square. The old school. And they're like, Godzilla. And I'm like, yeah, okay, Godzilla. And so I do the weirdest thing I've ever done on a business trip. And I walk over to the statue of Godzilla, and I remove my Red Sox hat, and I fold it neatly, and I place it on Godzilla's feet. And I bow as reverently as I can at the rubber suit dude. Okay, and I get back on the bus. And I get back, and people are like, how did it go? Did we save? Did we all still have jobs? Did you save the account? I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know. It's a weird culture, man. I don't get it. It's like the CEO of like major technology corporations are calling me up going, are we still have an account there? Are we still okay? And I don't know. I have no idea, except for 2 weeks later when this shows up in the mail. It's a Lions official hat. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Mentioning Channel 56 and Channel 38, Ned Martin and Hawk, right? We all remember those games, at least I do. Since one year when I was 14 years old, I watched every single Red Sox game and I listened to every single Red Sox game. So either watching them or listening. Our next storyteller is someone who is very dear to my heart. I love her. And she's one of my favorite people in the world. When I got divorced and moved to Gloucester, I wanted to find some safe places for my boys because we were new to Gloucester. And I said, I'm going to sign them up for Gloucester baseball. Baseball will be a great thing for them to be a part of. So I did. And Corey was, fate swooped in, and Lisa Olson became his coach. Lisa Olson is very important in my life because of what she taught my boys about baseball. Not only was Corey on her team, but Miles too. And Lisa just the purest essence of baseball. That's what she means to me. She taught the boys just what baseball really truly means. And I love her. And Lisa, thank you for everything. And Gloucester Baseball, too, is one of the best organizations, youth organizations up here in Gloucester. I think that everyone should support it. It's a fantastic thing for young kids to be a part of. And Lisa is still coaching. She coaches the Pirates. And come on up here, Lisa. I love you. Tell a story.
Hi. I believe I was born on a baseball field. If anyone knew the first speaker tonight, Cindy Hendrickson, that was my sister, and I was the person she was talking about. If you look back at Cindy, Cindy's absolutely beautiful, dresses to perfection. And then there's me. I just came off of the baseball field to come here tonight. So things were different. In 1965, we lived right across the street, actually, from Woodrow Field on Stage Fort Park, and greatest location in the world. 1965, Little League tryouts came. My brother John was 9 years old, I was 8. We were inseparable, the two of us. And I followed him along. I couldn't try out because girls couldn't play Little League at the time, but I didn't know any different. And I followed him, and he made a Little League team, and the coach of the team said, oh yeah, come on, you can practice with us, and I became the bat girl. Well, that was my introduction to Gloucester Little League. I have not left the field since 1965. We came along, my brother played, I played every practice with them. I had the uniform, I had the hat. My mother's best story was, I was leaning against the fence, and it was, 1965, 66, and I had my hat, my uniform on. There couldn't have been anyone prouder. And the fans were packed back then. Everybody was there. And somebody said, I think that's disgusting. And they said, what are you talking about? How that boy's hair is that long. Well, that's what happened. My mother laughed, and she goes, and the person looks at my mother and goes, well, don't you think that's disgusting? She goes, yeah, but proudly she goes, that's my daughter. So what I want to tell you about is I coached, I actually had the pleasure of coaching Miles and Corey, along with numerous other, mostly males. I have 2 girls on my team, and this year I've had the pleasure of coaching the next generation, as my 8-year-old granddaughter is now on my team. So, but my best moments, and there's so many to tell, is the story I'm going to tell you is the 4 years I had my son Eric on my team. Eric is now 30 years old, and he has been helping me coach for probably about the last 10 years, 11 years. And the hardest thing when you coach in Little League is when you have your own child on the team, because you don't want to show favoritism towards them. You don't want to, not put them on the back burner. Well, Eric was a happy kid. He was a happy-go-lucky kid, just happy, just like myself, to play baseball. So one day we're having a game, and this guy, Joe Mountain, is the coach of the Cardinals. And the tennis ball comes on the field, and Eric looks, he's 10 years old, he looks at me, he goes, if they threw that tennis ball to me, I'd hit it out of the park. So of course I tell Joe Mountain when we're making substitutions. And so Eric comes up to bat, and he's got the little grin on his face, he's a little chunky kid, and he comes up and he says, so Joe calls timeout and goes out to the pitcher's mound. And Eric's looking at him, he's like, what's going on? So the pitcher goes into his windup, Eric's standing up at bat, in comes a tennis ball. Eric just comes and looks, and it's like he doesn't swing. And so the game, we're all laughing, poor Eric's expense, and he comes and whatever, he goes up and gets a hit, and makes it out. So the inning's over, and I'm like, Eric, why didn't you swing at the ball? He goes, because it was outside, Mom, it wasn't a strike. So the next year comes, and poor Eric again comes up at bat, and there he is, and now he's 11 years old. Now he's a little bit better, because 9 and 10 is really kind of weak in Little League. And he gets up again at the plate, and Joe calls timeout again. He comes, there it goes. So now Eric's like looking at him like, and he's got to be thinking, what the heck is this guy doing? And pitcher comes, he goes into his windup, he pitches, in comes a grapefruit, shaped like a baseball. Once again, Eric stands there, doesn't swing. And I'm like, so I come and everybody's laughing. Doc Enos was the umpire. I don't know if you're blessed to have Doc Enos. And he was the umpire in both situations. He's just shaking his head, and Joe and I are like on the ground laughing. And Eric, God bless him, it just keeps going. So now here we go into his 12-year-old year. That we're going into the playoffs, and the game against the Cardinals, whoever won was going to make the playoffs. Joe's got a ball that has a string attached to it, so that when you throw the ball, it's going to stop right before home plate. He had it all lined up. He told me all about it. Well, when Eric came up to bat, by now Eric's 12, and he's actually pretty good. And like we said, whoever won the game was going to go in. And you see Eric come up to bat, and you see him point the bat, and he's looking at Joe, and he's like, he knows something's going to happen. But Joe just couldn't. Joe just looks, and he goes, Eric, I had something. He goes, I just can't do it. He goes, this is too important a game. So Eric he basically had to step out of the box and get himself ready to get up to hit. But the whole reason I'm telling you this is this baseball, it's fun. Maureen said it's fun. It can take you from the highs, and it can take you from the lows. And I've experienced it all. This is my 39th year coaching Gloucester Little League Pirates. I actually had a Little League all-star practice that I came from tonight. And if you just come and see these little faces from 9 years old to 12 years old, and look at the smiles and look at the grins, and the big losses, when the game's over and the big losses, and then it's like, hey, do you want to go for an ice cream? It's like, yeah, let's go. And how it can change so much. So Gloucester Little League and Little League in general is just like the best thing, and it just keeps me young every year. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much. Our next storyteller is Dick Wilson. And Dick has been just an important community leader in Gloucester, in the city of Gloucester. And he's done so much for the city of Gloucester. But I met him through baseball, really, and also through Rockport baseball. And so I'm really thrilled that Dick has decided to be here tonight to tell us a story. Please give him a round of applause, a big one, for everything he's done. Dick.
As you can see, this is my bat. And just picture now, and this is me, I have to lean up over here. I just finished pneumonia and a knee, not replacement, but scoping. So I'm going to kind of lean over here. And I'm fine. This bat is circa 1942. And it's my bat from the time I was 3 years old till the time I threw the first pitch in the Gloucester Little League in 1952. And that was the first year that we played. So you can picture me on Good Harbor Beach with every dad in the world throwing me pop flies, or me with my bat making believe I was Stan Musial, or making believe I was Ted Williams. Or perhaps I was pitching because I was Warren Spahn. And the only thing that I was interested in doing between the age, and I can remember, 3 years old, until the time I hit the Little League, was to be a professional baseball player. And I was blessed in that I, in fact, made it. So let's skip forward a little bit. My grandchildren, we have 12 at home now, because it's a summer camp at our house. They couldn't believe that I would bring that bat here. But let's skip forward a little bit to beyond the Little League to high school, and then from high school to Bates College, and then from Bates College to the University of Massachusetts, where we had 1.5 kids. And I played baseball at the University of Massachusetts, and then signed with the Cleveland Indians. And Early Wynn was mentioned earlier. You ever heard of the player to be named later? No name, that was me, the player to be named later. So I enjoyed my career in baseball, but the problem was I am now the same size as I was then. I was good, to be sure. In fact, made it to 2 weeks in the major league sitting in a bullpen. But you know, when you have 2 kids at home and you're in northern Quebec, Canada, maybe it's time to settle in and do something that is a little more productive than playing baseball. I will tell you, though, I made a lot of money. I taught English in a French high school in the off-season and had a terrific time, even learned the language, because I didn't realize they didn't speak English. In Jonquière, Quebec, Canada, they only spoke French. So je parle français un petit peu. Now, let me go ahead a little more. I came back to Lanesville, because that's the only place we could afford to rent. And I said to my wife, I said, you know, I gotta find a job. So I went to a friend who owned Carroll Steel Insurance Agency, and I said, what the hell am I going to do? And he says, oh, you'd be great in insurance. I said, well, when I was at UMass, 2 things I would not do. I would not be a salesman, and I sure in hell wasn't going to sell life insurance. Because in those days, it was collecting nickels and dimes from door to door, and I didn't think it was particularly attractive. So I took exams. You know how you take these vocational type exams as to what you'd be good at. Well, guess what came back? I'd be great in sales, particularly life insurance sales. So I was desperate. And for $500 a month, I signed up with the New England Mutual Life Insurance Company as an agent. Now, this is back in 1964. Prior to that, let me back up a little bit. Barbara and I went to see Ted Williams' last at-bat at Fenway Park, along with 2 million other people who professed to be there, to have been there. But I have the proof right there down in front of all of you right there. And we watched Ted hit it out of the park. He supposedly pointed his bat, but he really didn't. Anyway, I had a love affair going with Ted Williams from the time I was 3 years old till I watched him hit it out of the ballpark at his last at-bat. All right, so I'm into the life insurance business I go. I have nowhere to go. I'm all dressed up. I have a suit on. I have a tie. I'm 24 years old. I have no market whatsoever. The only people I know are other 24-year-olds, and they were broke as hell. So what would I do? I found people at night. I would prospect. I would send out direct mail, and Jerry Goulart would write back, yeah, I'd like to buy some term insurance. And on this kind of stuff would go. But I really got excited because I could go to the ballpark, Fenway Park, during the day. And in September, the Red Sox were about 24 games out of first place. So I went over to Fenway Park. I got the stub there. 50 cents I'd get into the bleachers. And then I'd move down to the box seats because there were only maybe 6,000 people in the entire 30,000 seat stadium. And you could hear the guy in right field say, you know, you're a bum and all this kind of stuff. Well, speaking of right field, there was a guy sitting in right field making a hell of a racket. And every other word was an S or an F. So I'm going to repeat a little bit of this, but I'm going to go like that when I need to because of the camera. So this individual is down there entertaining the ushers. The ushers have nothing to do because there was nobody there to usher. So I hear this, yep, well, what do you think? And on he went. So I went down, and lo and behold, I've got my briefcase, I've got my tie, I look at it, down at him, and it's Ted Williams. And he's the hitting instructor for the Red Sox. And he's putting on a show because he was a loudmouth. He, to my way of thinking, unquestionably was the finest hitter in the history of baseball, but he was weird. He actually has been frozen, in case you're not aware. He'll be back in another century or two. Anyway, I went down, and being a former baseball player, I went down and I said, Mr. Williams, I'm Dick Wilson. I'd like to introduce myself. He says, I don't about you. So I kind of got a little blush, and I said to him, I said, well, it's great to meet you, and you've always been my hero. With that, he melted on the spot because he really was a marshmallow. And he said to me, he says, well, kid, what do you do? And I said, well, I sell life insurance. He says, well, I need some of that. And I about fell out of the, I dropped my briefcase on the ground. And he said, yep. He says, here's my accountant's card. I want you to go see my accountant, and you arrange to sell me some of that life insurance. So it happened to be, you want to talk about grace and God, it happened to be the accountant lived on Eastern Point. And I knew him growing up. I knew most people here growing up. So I went to the accountant. I said, I just met Ted Williams. He would like to buy some life insurance for me. He said, I know. He's already called me. And he said, Ted Williams said to his accountant, I would like to buy from that kid $10,000 worth of life insurance. Now, mind you, this is 1964. $10,000 worth of life insurance, and I want to pay the entire premium up front because I know he needs that kind of business to justify his $500 a month. Now, that's my memory of Ted Williams. What a wonderful man. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. That was a good one. Does anybody drive by Wilson Field down by O'Malley? That's named after Dick Wilson. So that's Wilson Field. Our last storyteller is a good friend of mine. Really pleased to have him. We had spent sharing many stories together about baseball. I believe it's something that has kept us together over the years, and Mike is a great storyteller. Please welcome Mike Paskovitz.
As you can tell by my garb, I actually love baseball. I've loved baseball since I was a kid. I remember, very, very fond memories of laying on the couch as a kid on a summer Saturday afternoon, listening to Ken Coleman and the Hawk, be able to tell a story and just put you almost in this low hum of peace, and hear the lawnmower of my father mowing the lawn out back, and it was such a fond memory growing up. And I played baseball my whole life. I played Little League, I played Babe Ruth, I played high school, I played college, and played a little bit after college. So I love baseball. However, my dirty little secret is wiffle ball. That little stick that you see in a Richdale that has a little white ball on it. I may get more joy and may have gotten more joy from playing wiffle ball than playing all the baseball that I played. And I've always tried to figure out why that is. And I think I finally figured it out. As a baseball player, I was always a pitcher. And I was blessed with the ability to throw the ball very hard. But that's all I was blessed with. If you were to ask me to throw a curveball or a changeup, I couldn't do it. In fact, in games in college, I remember there was this one game where I heard two hitters, after I threw a pitch that was intended to be a curveball, one of the batters said to the next batter, "Was that supposed to be a curveball?" So I had this phobia about my inability to do anything but throw a fastball. And of course, a wiffle ball is designed to do miraculous things. And so you could throw a curveball, you could throw a sinker, you could throw a riser, and technically a baseball can't rise, but a wiffle ball can. So it was my alter ego. It actually made me feel like a real pitcher. And growing up, we had, in fact, I relished this so much, and in fact, I think I made short work of Miles Rinn when he was about 4 years old. He couldn't touch my stuff. And so wiffle ball has just been part of, anywhere I am when someone has a wiffle ball, I will go out and play with you because I just enjoy it so much. And I have a brother. My brother is about a year younger than me. No one would actually recognize us as brothers because he's much smaller than me and he doesn't really look much like me. The only way they recognize is when we start to fight about who beats who, Superman or Batman. And so my brother and I grew up, intense and competitive as brothers often are. And I have this belief, and I think it's actually probably scientific and maybe even genetic, that older brothers always win, right? So there is this domination that older brothers have, at least in the mind of a younger brother, at least in the mind of my brother. So my brother and I would play wiffle ball all the time, and I would beat him every single time. In fact, it was a slaughter rule. I would destroy him every single time. And the poor kid kept coming back over and over. He is the most relentless kid that I ever knew. And in about our 675th game, we were playing in the backyard, and my backyard was arranged, and we thought of it much like a baseball stadium. We had the house here to the right, which had a high fence in right field. The left field was our dog run, and center field was our garage. And so we had a Alaskan Malamute and a St. Bernard, and there were no such thing as poop bags back then. So the last thing you wanted to do is have a pop-up, because you'd be walking around like this, and you try to catch the ball. So we had a lot of fun in our backyard, and there was one game in particular, and all was right with the world. And my brother was actually beating me, and we were in the last inning, and he was beating me 2-1. And in our rules, we had 2 outs was an inning, and so my brother was very much savoring this moment. He had this look on his face, this devilish look that was a life-defining ripple in the universe. And he saw this as changing his entire future. And I was sitting there at bat, and what I'm thinking to myself is, I'm actually not intimidated. I'm actually not even worried. I realize that if I don't win, my house is going to be in chaos. It's going to burn down. My parents are going to get divorced. My sisters are going to run away. I mean, I just thought the natural order of things had to be restored. So I had this sense of inevitability that I was going to beat my brother. And he was sitting there with this grin on his face. And my mother and my cousin came out on the back stoop to watch this moment. And it was, you could hear a pin drop. And so my brother looks at me, and he has this smile on his face, and I actually did this. He'll actually deny it if anyone were to tell him this. But I actually stepped out of the batter's box and pointed my bat to center field like Babe Ruth. And I called my shot. So my brother winds up, and he throws me a pitch, and I just crushed it over the center field, over the garage, and it lofted into the driveway. And my brother just collapsed on the ground and was just inconsolable. Poor guy. As many successful people in life say, it's often the moments of great failure and despair that spur them on to great things. And my brother has become a very successful physician, and he's been a very successful guy in life, and I like to take full credit for that.
Thanks, Mike. That's our show for tonight. Our next Fish Tales is going to be on Schooner Adventure. That's August 26th, a Friday night, 7:30. But thank you all for coming again tonight, and have a great summer. I hope you get to catch some baseball.